You're listening to the B&H Photography Podcast. For over 40 years, B&H has been the professional source for photography, video, audio, and more. For your favorite gear, news, and reviews, visit us at bnh.com or download the B&H app to your iPhone or Android device. Now here's your host, Alan Weitz.
Welcome to the B&H Photography Podcast. Today is a special episode. Not only do we have two incredible landscape photographers with us to talk about their craft, but today is the day we announce the winners of our Canon 5D Mark IV sweepstakes. So fasten your seatbelt and stick around to the end of the episode to see if you are the grand prize winner of either a 5D Mark IV with a nifty 50mm f1.8 lens, or a second prize winner of a Canon 80D with another nifty 50mm f1.8 lens. But first, it's time for Al's Gearhead Pick of the Week. Ever hear of filters made by a company named Breakthrough Photography? Me neither, until I noticed we just started carrying them. These are pretty neat. These filters are high-quality hybrids. They're circular polarizers combined with either 4 or 6-stop neutral density. They're available in a full range of sizes from 46mm through 105mm. Breakthrough Photography polarized ND filters are made from shot B270 glass with multi-resistant nano coatings. They also feature titanium frames with knurled sides for easy gripping. If you're looking for what on paper appear to be truly high-quality filters that deliver neutral color and optimum detail, check out these new ND polarizers from Breakthrough Photography. Today, we are going to be talking about landscape photography. The first permanent photograph ever taken was a landscape, an urban landscape, but a landscape nonetheless. Since that time, the art of landscape photography has never gone out of vogue, but it has evolved. Since 1826, we've transitioned from metal plates to wet plates, each of which required ridiculously long exposures. Then we went to film and now to digital cameras that allow you to go out in the wee hours of the night to capture incredible detailed photographs of the Milky Way, handheld no less. Today's guests are cutting-edge practitioners of both the art and science of landscape photography. They are also members of Photo Cascadia, a group of nature and landscape photographers who ply their photographic and educational skills in the Pacific Northwest corner of the continental U.S. Joining us via Skype is Erin Babnik. Erin is a full-time adventure landscape photographer, photography educator, writer, and speaker. Her dedication to outdoor photography evolved out of her years of working as an art historian, photographing at archaeological sites and in museums. She subsequently gets me. She subsequently spent years producing photographs on assignment before transitioning to her specialty of wilderness photography and teaching photography workshops worldwide. Also joining us via Skype is Sean Bagshaw. Sean's love of outdoor photography grew out of experience both as a rock climber and as a leader of numerous rock climbing expeditions. His love of landscape and technology is readily apparent when viewing his imagery. His bio notes that his work is a two-part creative exercise, in-camera and post-capture development. He also notes that he spends, and we quote, a quarter of each year in the field on a quest for magical light, sleeping in his truck or on the ground, stumbling around in the dark, eating bad food, and avoiding showers. That's our kind of partying.
Just like us here, yeah.
That's it. That sounds like podcast life. Erin and Sean are both well known for their workshops and tutorials, and we will give you all the links and sites at the end of the show. Welcome, Erin. Welcome, Sean.
Thanks so much. Great to be here.
Thank you.
It's terrific to have you here. Here's a question for you. What are the factors you consider when deciding on a location for a landscape shoot? You guys fight it out amongst yourselves. Who wants to go first? Flip a coin.
All right. Well, I'll start off with that one. I personally have a soft spot for magnitude, so I tend to be drawn to prominent mountains, vast deserts, huge trees, places where I feel especially immersed in nature. And I think that love of immersion is also what makes me favorite places that are more removed from built environments. So while years ago I was kind of in the habit of seeking out well-sited ruins and castles and churches to photograph, anything nicely isolated in a landscape, nowadays I feel as though I've kind of had my fill of that for a while, and I tend to seek out more wild environments, but perhaps I'll return to the rest of it someday.
Is it kind of refreshing to go out into the middle of the desert after photographing mountains for long stretches of time just to look out and see, quote unquote, nothing?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for me it is. Yeah, I love having a variety of landscapes, and that's one of the great things in the Northwest is, I mean, like you said, we have mountains and lakes and rivers, but we also have, the Pacific coast here in the Northwest, which is beautiful, and then if you go east of the Cascade Range, then you have desert. So yeah, you can really photograph and access a whole bunch of different kind of landscapes.
You can go to a place, you can scope out a place, you could figure out when the best light will be and everything else. And we want to talk about a lot of the techniques that you use to do that as the show goes on. But obviously, you're in an environment that even though you could look at forecasts, everything happens very spontaneously. And my guess is often what happens is not what you expected to have happen. There's always dramatic stuff. Have you ever had a situation come up where you sort of come up and say, the light really didn't happen today? As amazing as that locale is.
All the time. I mean, that's that probably happens more often than getting the light that's going to work for a photograph. And but that's part of it. And I think that's something I talk a lot about with students and things, is that for me, photography's not as much about the location as it is about the light and the atmosphere. So being at a great photogenic location is important. But if I show up there, like you said, I show up and the light's not right, then there's really not a photograph there for me. So that's a really important element.
And what do you do in those situations? I mean, do you plan to come back another day? Do you take what you have and try to make something out of it? What's your attitude when things just don't work out?
I personally take that in a couple of different directions depending on what's on offer. Sometimes I may come back another day, and I may, in addition, just try to play with what's there because, why not? It's always wonderful just to be out in these areas, regardless of what you're actually getting for photography. And so I just try to play around and enjoy it. And sometimes something comes out of that, and sometimes something doesn't. When I'm with students and we're in those sorts of situations, I often say to them, well, would you like to come away with a photograph today? And usually the answer is yes. So may as well just play around with it and see what happens.
Right. Yeah.
And a lot of times it means kind of adjusting your expectations. When you go to the Grand Canyon, you expect you're going to take a photograph of, the Grand Canyon. But when that light's not working and just the photograph of the location itself without the kind of right light and mood and atmosphere isn't going to create something that you're excited about or interested in, then it's time to start looking around for other things. And a lot of times I'll come away from a place like the Grand Canyon with a photograph of a stick or a rock or something that isn't, or the sky that, you wouldn't know where it was taken. But it still some of those end up being my favorite photographs.
So you guys use a lot of apps and other tools to determine the best place to be and where to be.
There are so many resources these days to aid landscape photographers in planning out locations. There are a whole load of them just devoted to maps specifically. So everything from Google Earth through programs that can superimpose ephemeral conditions onto a map. So everything from celestial events to weather. And so, there are a whole range of those. Some of them that I really like include Gaia GPS, Photo Pills, TPE. And then there are all sorts of apps that can help you to figure out what's going on with the ocean, what's going on with the night sky. There's really no end to them. It's a great time to be a landscape photographer.
Now, when you say things going on with the ocean, aside from tides, which are obviously pretty important, is there anything else that's thrown into that?
Yeah, absolutely. For people who like to photograph large waves, there are apps that can let you know the height of a swell, the direction that the wind's going, so you'll know what kind of a fringe you'll be getting off the top of the wave if it's going, if the waves are going one way and the wind's going the other.
Sure. And even wind direction and what the marine layer is doing if there's fog out offshore.
And have you, let's say, for example, you're looking at everything and you're checking the weather, you're checking positions for stars, and things just aren't looking good. Will you scrap a trip based on the information you're getting ahead of time, or do you figure, it's still worth getting out there and finding what I can find?
it really depends. A lot of times if I'm going someplace where I think, there's potential in all conditions, I'll go and see what I get and just, have an adventure and see what unfolds. But there's certainly times when, for example, in kind of a winter mountain landscape, if I want snow, a lot of times in my photos, I want fresh snow. And so I'll wait for a snowstorm to come through. And if it doesn't snow, if there's no fresh snow, then yeah, I'll scrap a trip. And right now in Southern Oregon, we're been having one of those winters where it just hasn't snowed much in the mountains for weeks or even months. So
you should go to
just
Florida.
kind of in a holding pattern. Yeah, right. Yeah, you guys on the East Coast are stealing our winter.
It's all right. You can have it back. No problem.
Are either of you in the planning stages of a trip right now?
We both are planning an expedition to Baffin Island this summer. Yeah.
For the summer. Okay, so it's still a while away.
What I like to do with most of my workshops and most of my trips is have sort of a loose itinerary. And then when I get there and the feet are on the ground, that's the time when I pull out all of these apps. And on an per outing basis, I make decisions about the micro location, where exactly within that general area that I have access to, I might want to go to get the best results.
Yeah, and that was something I was going to mention earlier about this, current technology that we're all walking around with this internet-connected computer in our pockets, our smartphones. And so a lot of that research, like Erin's saying, can be done in the moment, in real time, out in the field. So you do some general research about kind of areas and basic seasonal stuff and that kind of thing before you go. But a lot of those kind of last moment decisions you can really do in the field, especially if you have some sort of internet connection. I mean, you can pull up moment by moment weather. You can have augmented reality on your phone so you know exactly where the sun is going to come up and place your camera so that the sun rises between two rocks. You can be getting, if you're in the Arctic, you can be getting live real-time aurora updates. I mean, all of that is coming right through your device that you're carrying with you.
Wow. And do you feel that the two of you or other people that you work with are to some degree in the vanguard using this kind of stuff?
I think you see some of everything, but I think like the current generation of landscape photographers who are out there, and a lot of the younger generation, which is great to see so many people in their teens and 20s and 30s being excited and involved in landscape photography, but they're fully on board with the tech. I mean, people are using everything that they have at their disposal. And usually, that's the thing when I go out with a group, I'm teaching some photography stuff. And if I have older students, I might be teaching some of the tech stuff. But when I have younger students or clients, they're usually teaching me stuff about, hey, have you seen this app? Or have you check this out? Check out what my phone can do. And so they're showing me stuff.
Do either one of you, or I'd like to ask both of you, where do you draw a line between what you consider to be still a photographic rendition, a for lack of better words, a faithful representation of what's there, maybe slightly tweaked but believable, and something that's now a photo illustration?
Well, I think
there are Erin.
I think there are two ways to answer that. There's a photograph that you look at and it puts you there, and you feel as though you feel a connection to what you're looking at. And then there's a photo that you look at and you think that doesn't look natural at all, and it doesn't put you there. And that's a separate matter from a photograph that might look real and put you there, but it's actually nothing of the sort. Or, a mountain that could never have been in front of that lake, or the sort of cloud structures that could never develop over that particular region. And so that's a different matter. I personally am pretty conservative in what I do. I'm not one to outright replace major elements in an image, such as a sky or a mountain. But that's not because I feel that it's a matter of me staying true to what a photograph is or any of that. I personally think that photography is an art, and I encourage photographers to take it where they will. But my own limitations are my own and come out of my interests in expressing myself through my engagement with the natural areas that I visit. So I I don't really put a whole lot of emphasis on labeling one sort of image making as photography and trying to draw a line and say that anybody who steps over that line is out of bounds. That's not my project.
Now, you say you don't move mountains. I get that. What about that? There's always a twig or a branch or a twig that's invariably somewhere very noticeable. Do you ever take them out?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
You just made me feel a lot better about myself. I want you to know that.
Some people make a big deal about that. I think it's becoming increasingly less of a big deal. But, I've definitely heard stories about people who would rather go in and alter the landscape physically rather than just do what could be done identically in post without touching a thing. And I prefer the latter approach. If it can be done in post, I'd rather do it that way.
Me also, and I would say that I would echo what Erin said, and you said the word kind of photo illustration, and that's something that sometimes people will bring up. It's like, is this really a photograph or is it more of an illustration? And I'm fine with that. If I'm doing something that is more of an illustration, if people want to call it a photo illustration or just an illustration, the label is less important to me than the kind of the impact and the communication of the final piece.
And by the way, I don't think using the term photo illustration is derogatory or makes it less than a quote unquote accurate or true photograph. It's just at a certain point, it becomes more of an interpretation of the scene as opposed to a representation of the scene or an accurate representation of the scene.
Yeah, I actually feel as though that's a trend of our era, is that urge towards interpretation, and I think that's making its way into photography increasingly because technology is making that possible.
And I would say it's an evolution of interpretation as well, because photography's always been interpretation. I mean, as soon as you throw on a wide angle lens or a telephoto lens, or you do a fast shutter speed or a slow shutter speed, or you have an interesting perspective that you wouldn't normally have just as a person, all of those things, as soon as you take a photograph, you're interpreting. And so I think the technology has just now enabled photographers to even, kind of expand that interpretive ability.
Good points. Well taken.
And this idea of, and this is a strong word, but a manipulation in camera or using filters or exposure time, you see no difference really than if it were to be in post and something that you would create after the fact?
Not at all.
Okay. And is this a conversation that happens a lot when you're on a workshop or talking to other photographers who may feel otherwise?
Oh yeah, I have this conversation all the time.
Yeah. But I think, like Erin said earlier, it's also a conversation that's really, it's changing. It's shifting. It used to be more about because it was new and unexpected, and I think people felt like it was going outside the rules or breaking the rules. And less I'm finding that now, that people, digital photography and digital image developing has been around long enough that people are now used to and familiar with what you can do, and they just now want to know how to do it.
Mm-hmm. And do you feel that we're in kind of a new age for landscape photography? That's kind of what we feel. I mean, that's what we're seeing.
Yeah.
I mean, we're looking at a lot of people incorporating new techniques and maybe not perfecting them, but we're bringing them to a new level. And it's just wonderful work out there all across the board.
I would agree. I feel that this is sort of a golden age for landscape photography. It's really coming into its own. It's really progressive, and I think it's pushing forward other genres of photography as well. And it's often said that the history of art is also the history of technology. And although there's a lot to be said for traditionalism, I personally really appreciate the idea that art is culturally significant. And so I embrace the idea of technology as a sort of zeitgeist, a spirit of the times that can be leveraged for a greater connection with the world that we live in. And I feel as though that's just inevitable with a young medium like photography, relatively young medium, that you're going to have what's happening now eventually kind of disrupt things. But nonetheless, every medium has its golden era, and I think we're entering into one, at least, maybe not the one, but I think it's definitely getting really exciting.
We hope you're enjoying this edition of the B&H Photography Podcast. Send us a tweet at BHPhotoVideo, hashtag BHPhotoPodcast.
Is it safe to assume that you're both shooting digitally exclusively now, or are you still doing film?
I was a horrible film shooter.
Yeah,
So
I
no film for me.
How do you define a horrible film shooter?
By having almost no decent film images to speak of to claim as my own. I did shoot film for several years in through the late 80s and 90s, but I was never satisfied, never felt like I really got good at it and was happy with my results. And that's why when digital cameras came out and were even close to being able to match the kind of the image quality and resolution you got from film, I made the switch instantly because it just instantly made sense to me, and I could accomplish things that I always wanted to accomplish with film, but just, for whatever reason, I wasn't good at it.
And is there one maybe moment or aspect of digital photography that clicked it for you? Was it being able to see the image, right after capture, or is it something deeper in terms of the ability to control the images?
Well, definitely, having real-time feedback is huge in digital photography. And not only being able to see the image on the back of the camera, and at that time after you took the photo, but now even you have live view, so you can actually view the screen and the image before you even take it. But also the kind of the data, the instant data feedback you can get with a histogram, so you can actually read all the light and tonal values within the image that you just took or you're about to take, and have that information as well. So that's all really helpful. But yeah, definitely the ability to take that information and then work with it. For me, the idea that when I was done, when I pressed the shutter, because I was shooting slide film, so I'd take the photo and then I'd send the film off, and it was out of my hands after that. And that was really hard for me with film. The idea that, boy, I'm capturing some raw materials here, but I want to keep working with them, and I have so much more I want to do with this, and I didn't have that opportunity. And, with digital, I do.
And do you shoot in live view normally?
It depends. If I'm on a fixed tripod and things are moving slowly in the scene and I can really take time and watch the screen, I'll use live view. It can be a good compositional aid. It can help me kind of frame the scene and cut out a lot of other input. But if I'm working quickly, or if the light conditions are a certain way, or if I'm hand holding, then I'm usually going through the viewfinder still.
Same.
Same for Erin? Okay.
I would imagine also you have battery use in the back of your mind too, because when you're working in live view, you're chowing down more juice a lot quicker.
For sure.
Depending on how many batteries you have with you.
I usually walk around with about 6.
Yeah, I have a pile of them.
Aside from obviously you have to carry a bunch of batteries with you. Do you carry any kind of solar chargers or anything? Because you're in really remote locations. Do you carry any kind of solar backups just to squeeze extra shots out of the day when needed?
Most of the time in the backcountry, I've been able to plan to have enough battery power to get me through whatever trip it is. But I know this trip that Erin kind of mentioned, this trip to Baffin Island, we're potentially going to be off the grid for maybe 2 weeks. And so that will probably require some sort of solar charging, I'm imagining.
Yeah, and I often spend a lot of time out in the desert for weeks at a time where I'm camping, and even though I'm not that remote, I'm still not near electricity. And so I do have a little solar brick that I can plug my battery charger into.
What other kind of accessories or tools or weapons do you take with you? Because both of you go out into locales that are remote. And you have to remind yourself, this isn't a Disney cartoon. This is the real world. And there are things out there that can hurt you. What kind of precautionary technologies do you take along with you for surprise visits? Oh, that was a nervous laugh, boy.
I was just thinking about our trip to Baffin Island, and we may be tingling with polar bears there, so that's a whole other thing. But just having a GPS spot device, I think, is prudent when you're going out into remote areas. So I have a Delorme device and a monthly subscription to it. And even though that does a lot of fancy things, like it has little, full color digital maps, and I can send texts with it and whatnot, just having that big red button to call for help is worth the price of admission to me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
And do either of you employ guides when you're in locations that you're not familiar with?
I usually. Oh, go ahead, Erin.
Oh, I was just say I never have, but I am considering one for a trip to the mountains of Pakistan. If I go there, I'll go with a guide. Baffin Island is probably a place where we could have one, or a lot of people would have one, but instead we're assembling a little expedition team. We've got Sean and I and Adam Gibbs and Floris van Bergel, all really excellent photographers and experienced outdoorsmen. So we're putting our heads together and hoping for the best.
By the way, I can't confirm whether it's true or not. But my understanding, I heard a rumor that some of the king penguins are trying to organize to be guides, and apparently they're terrible. So even if they're a lot cheaper than don't go with them. I've just heard bad things.
Right.
Yelp reviews?
Well,
They're not bad Yelp review, and they're just not reliable.
Okay. You mentioned the trip to Pakistan, or the potential trip to Pakistan, and can I just ask, had you seen an image? Has someone told you about a location? What is it that is the drawing factor there? And this could be anywhere, not Pakistan necessarily, but because you mentioned Pakistan.
Yeah, I don't tend to visit places because I want a particular scene. In fact, the particular scenes are enough to kind of drive me away from an area. I want to be able to go out and explore. And there are people doing some really interesting work out in the mountains of Pakistan. But what I'm particularly drawn to out there is the distinctiveness of the peaks. They are particularly craggy and in combination with glacial features. And I love that combination. I get that a little bit in the French Alps, well, quite a bit, but there are only so many of these big craggy peaks. There's just more of all of that in Pakistan, and I'm very keen to get out there and explore that.
Okay. All right, good. I'd like to maybe jump back to something we had on our list here, and we talked about a new era in landscape photography, and we wanted to ask a bit about the Pacific Northwest specifically, and the West Coast, and this confluence of tech and outdoor. Do you feel that it is a hub out in the Pacific Northwest for the new landscape photography?
It seems like it is, or at least has been. I think it seems like landscape photography, I guess, from being at ground zero, or if we're talking about the Pacific Northwest being a hub, feels like it kind of maybe really got some excitement going here in the last decade or two, and then it feels like it's really spread out from here. It feels like now I'm seeing just incredible landscape photography and photographers from all around the world. But for some reason, it did seem like for a period of time, I think maybe kind of starting with Art Wolf, who's from the Seattle area, and really kind of set the stage for a certain style of landscape adventure photography a while back. But then moving on from there, lots of activity from, in the digital era, from, all the people that we shoot with, our Photo Cascadia group, and people like Ryan and Candace Dyer, Miles Morgan, Mark Adamus, Adam Gibbs, who we talked about before. Those are all Northwest photographers and have been kind of spreading this current feel of landscape photography, it seems like, for a while.
Yeah, those are some of the names we were going to mention. Exactly, yeah. How did you find these other people's work then? Was it conversations, just hearing about someone's work and reaching out to them? Are there get-togethers? Do you guys sponsor workshops, or other than workshops that you guys are running? Is there, how would this hub have formed?
All of the above. Sean's been in the thick of it in that area longer than I have, so he can probably speak to the earlier days. But as far as when I started getting involved, I did at one point organize a meetup of all landscape photographers who I knew who were working at a high level. And we had this awesome meetup of people who could make it out in the Columbia River Gorge. And that got a lot of people together. And I think a lot of history was made as a result of that. A lot of connections were made. But yeah, also just different forums that existed, like NPN back in the day. Sean, do you want to add anything that's really bringing people together?
Yeah, I could talk a little bit just about. I think pre-internet, that photography was more of a kind of a fringe and kind of solitary. My impression, anyways, of photography back then was that photographers spent a lot of time doing it by themselves, but the internet really gave people a way to. Photographers a way to share their images with each other very quickly and comment and critique each other and help each other. So these online communities of photographers really sprang up. And this is going back to the early 2000s. I think I probably started participating in the Nature Photographer Network forum, NPN, that Erin mentioned, maybe around 2003, 2004. And that's, when digital photography and putting images on the web was really new. And, but yeah, a lot of these photographer communities sprang up around that. And I think a lot of photographers were really looking for a way to be more social and interact and share. And so it really took off then and grew from there. And, that was all pre-Facebook, pre-Instagram, pre-500px, and a lot of these other big ways that people can do social media and photo share now. Those were the predecessors to that. And I think that's where it really started.
All that said, does it ever get you upset if you say you plan out a shot, you've been looking at a space and you ran all the numbers, you know what time you have to be there, and the weather looks ideal, and you set out and you kill yourself to get there, and you arrive hours before the appointed moment of going click, and there are 6 other people already setting up there. Would you rather be by yourself, or is it okay if you find 6 other people setting up for that same shot or similar shot, shall we say?
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I can honestly say I've never been in that situation because I don't tend to target those types of locations.
Oh, because we were waiting for you, wondering why you never showed up.
I would agree with Erin. I think these days you can really, with this kind of explosion of popularity of landscape photography, the potential for running into a lot of other photographers is certainly there, and it can be a social event if you want to go hang out with other photographers. There's certainly places where you could pretty much guarantee you're going to have 10 or 20 or 100 of your favorite friends. Or you can also go places, it's not hard still, fortunately, to go places where, you won't see another photographer or maybe even not any other people. And one of the ways you can do that is when you're researching locations and looking online and looking at photos or photos of places. That's one of the ways I know sometimes, like if I see just dozens and dozens, like on 500px or on Google Images, dozens and dozens of images that are all taken from the same spot and they all look very similar, I'll know that's probably not where I'm going to go if I want to have a solo experience, because there's so many photos from that same spot. The chance that there's going to be multiple people there on any given day is pretty good.
By the way, I carry a whole bunch of real small plastic no trespassing signs that I just leave behind as annoying. I just put them all over the place.
Just little signs,
clothes,
trail
beware
clothes,
poisonous snakes, all that stuff. I just leave them behind.
Let me jump back again to this idea of the West and tech. Do you feel that there is something to be said for the like a forward-thinking, technical relationship with photography that you see out in the West that you might not see otherwise? And the flip side of that is when you had some of these meetings, or even continue to have the meetings, will you have somebody there who comes in with a giant analog view camera and you let him in? Do you let him in? Do you let him into the club or not?
Oh, absolutely not.
Okay. Just double checking. But yeah, I mean, I guess this is coming from our New York City point of view, but that somewhere between Silicon Valley and the Cascade Mountains, there's this great idea of technology and photography blending. And again, would you think that's fair to say? Maybe.
I think so. I think that and I think the West, maybe not just the Northwest, but certainly the West overall, California, Washington, Oregon, has kind of embraced technology in a lot of factors going way back. And you talk about internet, Silicon Valley, you talk about the, kind of green technology explosion, and it spills over into other places. So I think, maybe people in the West are pretty open to the ideas of that. And, but I also think it's already kind of coming to this point where it's starting to come full circle. And I see a lot of people going back to film now and going back to some older techniques for artistic reasons or for experience reasons or whatever. In fact, a good friend of mine, Rainer Szwinski, who is a photographer in Colorado, he and I are going to be traveling to the Faroe Islands in the spring, and he now shoots medium format film almost exclusively.
Yeah, I was just going to say I have a lot of really good friends in England who specialize in medium and large format film. And some of them are also doing medium format digital, and they mix it up. Some of them, they do both. They might shoot on film and then scan it and then take it from there into the digital heights that technology allows. It's so I think the lines are really more blurred, and it's really exciting to see that personally. I think
you guys go to some really exotic places that are just lush and beautiful, the kind of places where you just wish you could just float over the landscape. That's what drones are doing. And they're enabling people to get the kind of imagery that we used to just imagine about or expect to see from Hollywood. Either one of you drawn to video, specifically drone video, with the work that you're doing on landscapes?
I've just, in the last year, kind of started to dabble in it a bit. And it's kind of a double-edged sword, or I don't know if that's the right metaphor there, but for me, just like you said, the ability to get these perspectives and this view of the landscape that we couldn't get before, at least most people couldn't, is really attractive. On the other hand, drones are, loud and obtrusive and a little annoying, and so I've been really trying to fly it only when I think no one else is around and no one's going to know that I flew it. That's been something I've been really aware of. But it's funny because I was out in Colorado. I got up before sunrise, hiked way out in the mountains, got away from people and places, and thought, okay, I'm out here and I'm going to photograph the sunrise light with my drone. I flew it for a long time. I went through all the batteries I had for it, probably an hour of fly time, and it was great. And then I packed it all up when I was out of battery, and I was hiking back to the car, maybe a mile or two. And all of a sudden I'm hiking along and I can hear a drone flying. And my first thought was, who's out here ruining my morning with their drone? Erin, are you flying any drones?
No, I've been around them a lot, and I really appreciate the really interesting work coming out of them. Early on, I spent a lot of time watching some of my friends who were at the forefront of that movement operate them and come away with great things, such as my friend Michael Shane Blum. He was one of the first people really out there doing exciting drone work, I think, for landscape photography. And I was very, very tempted, but the limitations and the problems so far haven't compelled me to jump in. We'll see.
I like it mostly as a storytelling tool. I'm so far not creating any works of art with my drone. But one of the great things I'm loving about photography now is that, the still image is still, for me, that's the artwork, that's the piece of art, that's the high quality. That's where a lot of time and energy goes in. But then to be able to use video and use drone footage and drone shots to tell us a visual story in video behind how you got the shot or where the shot was taken or, what kind of went into creating the shot, that's a really fun extra piece. Instead of in the past, you would have had just the photo itself, but now being able to tell the story that got you to the photo is really fun for me.
Yeah, that right there has been my interest in video, but not from the air. So I've been getting into it myself, but with cameras on the ground and for behind the scenes purposes. I've been doing a lot of experimentation with that. Canon just sent me a bunch of mirrorless gear to play with, and that was my main interest with that because it's small and light. It can be there as that extra camera handling that end of things. And I'm really excited about where that might go. But so far it is about that behind the scenes storytelling more so than actually creating art with the video.
So can I take that to mean that you're not going to be switching over? I mean, with the experience that you had using it, you'll be sticking with your DSLR at this point?
Well, for the time being, but we'll see what comes down the pipeline. And right now I'm very excited about integrating the mirrorless into what I'm doing for behind the scenes uses, but I'm very happy with my 5D Mark IV for the rest of it.
You're both Canon shooters, is that correct?
Yeah.
Yep, that's right.
Okay.
All right. And a range of lens choices for whatever the situation calls, or do you tend to stick with any favorites?
I have a pretty standard kind of range of lenses that is kind of my go-to kit, which is, wide angle, so 16 to 35, kind of a mid-range 24 to 70, and then my telephoto 70-200. And those three lenses go with me pretty much everywhere. I know Erin shoots even wider these days with an 11 millimeter. Haven't gone there yet. But then, if I have need for a specialty lens, I have other lenses that I might bring in, but that's my standard kit. But I might throw in a 400 millimeter, or I might throw in a lens, a macro lens, or a lens specifically for shooting night skies or things like that. But usually those three lenses can get me through my normal landscape situation.
Gotcha. Let me ask you guys about what I just call the business model and how it's changed over the past several years. Do you, having worked, at least from what I understand, Erin, in your past on assignment as a landscape photographer, and now transitioning to some degree to working as a workshop leader, can you speak about the advantages and disadvantages of both?
Yeah, I've fully transitioned. I haven't done assignment work since 2011, maybe, something like that. Right now, I feel as though education not only is a great way to actually make a living in this profession, but it's also just been a part of my life. I've always been a teacher of some sort, so education's a natural fit for me. I've taught all sorts of things: art history, computer graphics, English. But it's really nice as far as looking at it from how it can really help a career these days in photography, because it allows you a certain amount of freedom in what you produce. Your photographs don't necessarily have to be intended to be commercially viable or to be domestic decor or something like that. So long as people like what you're doing, they'll want to learn from you, and there's a market there. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, that's kind of what we were getting at, because we were talking just the other day about the thrill of having an assignment and seeing your work published by an editor and then out there. However, those markets are obviously drying up, and the freedom that can come by determining your own course and bringing
honestly,
people along
I
with
have
you.
turned down more offers to be published than I have accepted. I even turned down a big feature all on the Dolomites, which I probably should have taken, but it's just the return on that investment of time these days. I'm not sure that it's entirely worthwhile. There's that prestige factor, but I got published a ton back in the day when I was doing all of the assignment work. And I feel as though right now I just have greater interests that maybe aren't as well served by that particular use of my time.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. That's
Good answer.
Good answer, as I say. We want to jump pretty quickly to some of the in-camera and post-process techniques, but I have a question that's a little bit tangential. But it does have to do with tech, and it has more to do with, the high-tech outdoor gear and clothes, for that matter. And is it fair to say that those aspects have changed the way you work as well?
I would say that's absolutely correct.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I was into technical clothing, as a mountaineer and a rock climber before the photography part of my career. So I was really using that kind of equipment to get me out in places. So that just was, I guess, a natural, transition when I got into photography, that the clothing just came along with it and the equipment. But absolutely, lightweight backpacking equipment enables me to take more camera gear. And that's a thing, if you're backpacking with camera gear, your pack's heavier than if you were just backpacking. So lightweight, high-tech gear in that way is great. Down jackets, all of the great, really warm, lightweight, compressible insulation, specifically down, but other types as well, because you're standing around behind a tripod in landscape photography a lot. So, and you're in the cold, winter, all kinds of things. So the ability to stay there and not get hypothermic is huge. Being out in weather with Gore-Tex and, waterproof stuff. And maybe one of the biggest improvements for me in the last bunch of years has been the advent of decent quality instant coffee, which all I need is...
No, I was going to actually ask about food.
Hear, hear.
Because if you're out camping, you need to bring in your food, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and water, of course, yeah.
And what are those coffees? We're curious.
You want brand names? The Starbucks Via
that's what I assume that's what you're
totally
gonna say.
drinkable.
Yes, they are.
Yeah,
Okay.
those are drinkable for me.
You know what?
Aaron, what about you?
You just mentioned a bunch of them, but something that comes to mind in addition specifically for mountain photography is I love my high-tech trekking poles. They have come a long way. I use them for so many things, not only just for making hiking a lot easier, but for crossing streams. And nowadays they're just so light and so comfortable and so collapsible and really sturdy. I have a whole lot of them going back years, and the old clunky ones are just horrible.
I saw on your website a picture of you in snowshoes that looked like they were pretty high-tech.
Snowshoes also, and crampons I was going to mention too. Nowadays you can get them really lightweight. They stay on the boots really well. They have these great anti-clumping plates on the bottom that can make the snow fall off really easily, and all of that just makes everything so much easier. If you've ever used this stuff, that isn't right bang up to date, there's a difference.
Okay, we're going to take a short break, and we come back more on landscape photography. Stay tuned.
If you'd like to reach out to us with your questions or comments, email us at podcast@bhphoto.com.
Okay, we are back. Could both of you give us an idea of some of the in-camera techniques that you use for capturing, some presets, some of your settings that you use going into taking your photographs?
I tend to keep things pretty simple on the capture end of things as far as my settings go. I basically just want to capture as much information as I can and get the cleanest raw file that I can. So while some people like to use a whole lot of in-camera processing, I do so much of my own processing on the computer end of things that I visualize that stuff pretty well, and I don't really need to see it on the camera. And so I'm just trying to get a really clean raw file. So I don't do a whole lot with the settings. I keep things super neutral so that my histograms are as accurate as possible or as faithful to the raw file as can be, even though it's a JPEG representation. And aside from that, the complicated stuff is more in the in-field technique, like focus stacking or shooting for a focal length blend or something like that.
And how often do you resort to those techniques?
Probably less often than I used to. I was more into working those really highly immersive, low-to-the-ground scenes several years ago, and I've sort of drifted into other interests, but I come back to it every now and then. So I would say, at least every now and then I'm back in that mode. I haven't abandoned it or anything, but it's not a regular way of seeing things necessarily.
What about yourself, Sean? How do you approach your photographs?
Well, when my first consideration is light. So I'm always just looking for light first, and that informs how I'm going to set up and then what techniques I'm going to use. And a lot of times I'm photographing in very low light. So that gives me long shutter speeds. I'm on a tripod. I end up with silky, kind of the smooth water effect if there's any moving water or streaming clouds. partly because I like those effects, but also a lot of the low light that I'm shooting in, I end up with long exposure times. So that's just comes with it. I use a polarizer. I almost always have a polarizer on my lens. If it's not helping the photo, I take it off. But I find that a lot of times, even sometimes it's subtle. It's just taking the reflection off the surface of water or off of leaves, giving them a little more true color, darkening the sky, various things that you get from a polarizer that are hard to replicate. In post. So that's another piece. And then, some of the stuff that Erin said, it really just comes down to the image that occurs to me, and then figuring out, it's like a process of elimination of, okay, what do I need to do to capture all those raw materials? And looking at what the camera's telling me, if I can't get enough depth of field to get it all sharp in one scene or one frame, then focus blending. If the dynamic range is outside of what my camera can handle, then I'm exposure blending. Sometimes it's a combination of those things. But I'm almost always on a tripod and shooting. I don't use too many things like autofocus. Usually I'm on a tripod, things are going slow. I can manually focus. I can manually set my exposure times. So pretty old school there.
Mm. And are you both always checking your histogram? Is that something that is always part of the process?
For me, the histogram is essential.
Mm-hmm.
It is my friend.
Until it isn't, right? I guess.
Well, a lot of people ask, so what metering mode? And are you auto metering? Are you spot metering?
Right.
Is it a matrix metering? What metering are you using? And my answer is, again, for what I'm doing, because I'm not doing rapid fire quick photography where I'm changing the scene really quickly, is I don't care what mode I'm metering in. I care what the histogram looks like. So I look at the histogram, and that tells me everything I need to know about the exposure value. And then I can adjust and compensate to get the histogram where I want it. And how the camera is reading it, I don't care.
Okay. So then can we jump ahead then to post-processing, and can you discuss a little bit of your workflow in that sense, and anything that you would consider kind of unique to your process?
Sean, you want to start with that one? Mr. Luminosity masks?
Okay. Well, there's so many options now for photographers for developing images in the digital darkroom, as they used to call it. I think no one calls it that anymore, but really my workflow, though, I try to, I do a lot of things, but I try to keep it simple. And so I haven't jumped on board with a lot of new editing and developing software as it comes out. There's a ton of great stuff coming out all the time, but really I start in Lightroom. I do some basic raw image setup in Lightroom, stuff that Lightroom's good at. Then I move over to Photoshop. In Photoshop is where I have the most control and the most flexibility and the most different options for the types of adjustments and how I work those together. It also gives me the ability to blend for exposure or blend for focus or all of those kinds of things with a lot of precision and control. And a big part of my workflow has been for over a decade now, the use of luminosity masks in Photoshop, which is something that was kind of it was a byproduct in Photoshop. It was there, but it wasn't something that the software gave you direct access to. And my friend Tony Kuiper kind of unlocked the potential, at least for landscape photography, of how to utilize those as part of your developing to really get fine control over doing tonal adjustments, to very, very subtle adjustments within tonal ranges. And so he puts out a great piece of software that I use that's a plugin. It's an extension for Photoshop, and that's a big piece of my workflow as well.
And the name of that plugin?
It's TK Actions.
Okay.
Tony Kuiper, TK Actions. What about you, Erin? I think you've been into Photoshop even longer than I was.
Yeah, but since before it was called Photoshop. Back in the day, I used to work for a newspaper down in San Diego, and I was in the press department there. And one day these Adobe reps came in and said they're going to teach us this new program called Photoshop, because they had just bought out this other program that we were using that was called Digital Darkroom. So they folded that in and took some of the technology, and it was one of the programs that went into it. And so Photoshop hadn't even been released yet, and they were teaching us how to use it. And we were really on the cutting edge of newspaper technology, I guess, back then. So yeah, I've been using it a long time, and I still do.
Do you have any surprises, or can you perfectly visualize where an image is going to go?
Both things. Sometimes I start off with a very pretty clear idea of where I want to go, and usually I see that when I'm photographing it. I have a pretty good sense, this one's going to be. I'm going to beat this one with the Wicked stick. It is just going to be dark and moody, and or something else. And other times I know what I want in terms of the story that I'm trying to tell, and I'm not quite sure how to bring that out. And sometimes I do need to play with it to kind of feel the aesthetics of it matching with what I had in mind. And then other times it's just a matter of getting things to harmonize, a color palette especially. I'm very involved in trying to get nuanced tones and color harmonies working in an image, and I'll spend a lot of time on that. So sometimes that's just a matter of kind of experimentation, finding just the right hues to make things really gel and as homogeneous.
When you say a lot of time,
as possible.
Can you give me a sense of what is a lot of time when you say you spend a lot of time on that?
Working tonality and the colors.
Mm-hmm.
For example, you might have an image where some bits of the sky are just obnoxiously bright, or some weird color. Like sometimes you'll get this weird greenish hue coming through, and it's just gross, and it's not harmonious with the rest of the colors in the image, and it draws the eye to an area of the image that's not important. Or anything in the frame, for that matter, that could have some little hint of some color that doesn't mesh well with the others, and just shifting it slightly. Sometimes a very subtle shift can help it just take a back seat where it belongs, instead of trying to take over the frame, and therefore allow the eye to travel the paths that you want it to within the frame.
I guess I'm trying to get to this idea of do you enjoy that time, and is it something that you would prefer to not do and spend more time out in the field? Or is it something that when you sit down and you look at an image and you work on it, it's something that's pleasurable to you?
Yeah, for me, sometimes I'm just in the zone when I'm processing. I love that. I prefer to be out in the field, and I enjoy that a whole lot more, but I do enjoy the processing end of things until it gets to the point where I feel like a photograph is just not coming around for me. And that can get frustrating, and then I just put it away and come back to it later until I feel the mojo again.
And when you are, let's say it's something you said you spend a lot of time on, can you put a general a sense of how long that would be? I mean, when you're working on an image, are we talking,
we're
several
talking
hours? We're talking,
oh, for sure,
a course of a couple
at least
days.
Hours.
You come back into, yeah.
If I go into an image, it's rare that I spend less than a couple of hours on it, and I have some that I probably spent weeks just going around and around in circles on some of the subtleties and just driving myself nuts with it.
Right.
How many of your images end up in print form?
For me, it's a minority. That has not been a focus for me. I do sell prints of all my images. They're all on my website for sale, but I don't promote that. I'm not one to have print sales and try to push it. That's mostly because I spend about 300 days of each year traveling and fulfilling those prints.
So that leaves you 65 days a year to print. What's the problem?
Exactly.
Does that even cross your mind that the print is the final product, or is the final product what you see on the monitor?
No. I actually, because I come out of that era when printing was the goal, I still think of things that way. And whenever I'm whenever I'm shooting, whenever I'm processing, I always think of prints as the possible end product, and I want each photograph to stand up to high quality reproduction as a print, but very few of them actually end up there.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's the way I would think too. I'm just kind of curious. Yeah. And Sean,
Yeah, for me, the print is definitely my ultimate expression of an image, and I'm like Erin. I don't get to print as much as I would like to. I would love to make a huge print of like all of my favorite images. But again, what do you do with them? Where do you store them? And there are other ways to view the images. I do sell some prints. And so when I have print jobs, it's fun, especially if a client is ordering images that I haven't printed before, or I haven't printed a lot. And so I get to see those in those cases, but then I get to send them off to somebody. And so I don't have to find a place to keep them. But yeah, I think viewing a really nice, well-produced print that's well presented and lit properly, that's the ultimate expression of a photograph for me.
Yeah, I would agree.
Our Photo Cascadia group has a traveling exhibit right now. It's called Atmosphere, and we partnered with HD Aluminum Prints in Washington, and those folks are really nice, and they produce just stunning large format aluminum prints of our images for this exhibit. And they're great to work with, super nice folks, nice small company. And yeah, so give a shout out to those guys.
We want to jump back to Photo Cascadia real quickly as we wrap up the episode, but I wanted to ask both of you, what monitors do you use?
My main monitor is an NEC multi-sync PA302.
Okay.
So it's a 30-inch. It's high resolution. It's above HD, but it's not a 4K. It's very color adjustable, calibratable, and has great resolution, but it's still to the point where I can zoom in on an image if I need to. And some of these huge resolution monitors, like 4K, 5K monitors are out there. I'm finding that you're looking almost at real pixels with the image on the screen, and you really don't have the ability to zoom in and look up close at parts of the image with more magnification, unless you start going beyond 100% magnification, and then you notice pixelation. Mm-hmm. So I'm finding that I'm not sure I'm going to go to 4 or 5K for image developing.
Interesting.
What are you on, Erin?
Well, because I have 2 offices, I have 4 monitors, 2 in each office, and they're all. Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, that is. You need 8 monitors.
But they're all 27-inch wide gamut displays of various brands. I have a couple of Dells in one office, and then in this one I have an Asus and an LG. But none of them are 4K, and I don't see myself going that direction anytime soon.
And do you use Wacom tablets and do you work with pens? Okay. Yep.
Yeah, I have one in each office.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Me too.
Okay, great. Just this is a lot of the stuff that I'm mentioning now we're going to cut out, so it's going to sound much smoother in the edit. So
these guys are great editors, trust me.
But can we talk a little bit about Photo Cascadia and the organization, how it came together? Do you consider yourself a collective or just a loose group of friends and instructors? And tell us as much about it as you'd like.
Well, Photo Cascadia we call ourselves a team, I guess, but really it's pretty loose. It's pretty informal, and mostly the biggest piece is that we're friends. And the original 6 of us started. It's almost 10 years ago now. I think maybe we're at the 9-year mark. I lose track. We were the original 6 started. We knew each other a lot through some of those early online photography forums. And then some of us worked with others in different capacities. And we're all from the Northwest. We all had a very similar kind of style and sensibility about and interests in photography. So Adrian Klein suggested one time, hey, why don't we just kind of make this a group, a club, a something? And so we did. And since then, our main goals is just to have kind of a central hub where we can all share our collective passion and interest and enthusiasm for outdoor and landscape photography with other people who like what we like. And we were finding that individually we each had our own kind of individual voices, but as a group we have a whole different voice. And then a few years ago, we brought Erin in, and that's been a huge, awesome addition. We were all fans of Erin's photography for quite a while. kind of lurking and following her work. And I don't know that she even knew that. And then at some point, she introduced herself to the group, and it didn't take long before we realized that, yeah, she needed to be a part of the group too.
Mm-hmm. And how do you divide, the kind of the common workloads, even, managing the website and things like that?
Well, for all Sean said about us being kind of casual, we are pretty well organized, and I think we owe a lot of that to Sean keeping us in check. But yeah, I mean, we have conference calls, we have a Slack channel now, and we have annual summits, and so we have schedules on Google calendars, and we are pretty well organized in that sense, and get things done pretty well on time.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess I like to ask, and if it's something you don't want to answer, that's totally fine. But is Photo Cascadia itself a money making organization? Is there a goal in that sense? Do you license images through it, or is that something you just do individually?
So all of us have our own individual photography businesses, mm-hmm. and so Photo Cascadia definitely, kind of props all of those up, and is certainly an outlet for licensing images, for promoting workshops, and it does support the things that we're all doing in our individual businesses. At this point, though, it's if someone licenses an image, then that person handles that, and it goes through their business. But we are working on some projects that are more collective, and it's more of a group effort. Some publishing, some books, and this atmosphere show that we have going right now, and things like that. So that's kind of evolving, and we're figuring out, like, as the group or the team itself generates money or income that's just for the team, how does that work? And that's where we're at with that right now.
So we do have expenses that we all share, and we've been managing to figure that much out, at least.
Okay, good.
And still talk to each other after all that. So
yes.
That's a good sign right there.
Great.
Yeah, that's the greatest thing about Photo Cascadia, is that we all get along really well. We're all friends. We all love photography, and we all love sharing photography. So there's not a lot of really big egos there. And so I think that's how we've been able to keep it going for so long.
It's cool beans. All right. Well, I'd like to thank both of you for joining us today. Erin, if people would like to see more of your work, where should they go?
ErinBabnik.com. That's Babnik. For the last name is where everything for me is listed outside of the Photo Cascadia website.
Great. Sean, what about yourself?
My personal business website is outdoorexposurephoto.com. And also, of course, the Photo Cascadia website, and all the social media channels, and YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. You can find me and have as much of me or as little of me as you like.
And is there any workshops coming up that folks can look to sign up for? And
most of mine for 2018 are sold out now, but I do still have a couple of spots left for the French Alps trip that I'm doing at the end of June, and also I'm running another Dolomites workshop with Alexander Deschamps co-leading in August, and we have some space left in that one as well.
Well,
and my 2018 schedule is all full at this time. I have one 2019 workshop that's currently listed and available to Switzerland, in the Alps of Switzerland.
Wow.
And I'm looking forward to that with Christian Hieb, who's actually a Swiss photographer. And the rest of the 2019 schedule will be coming in the months ahead.
Well, it sounds like you guys are keeping busy. Who needs assignment work, right? When you got this going on. That's cool.
Well, I know, just speaking for John and I, all of our workshops are booked for the next 7 years. We're not even taking names anymore.
Not surprised.
Yeah, what's that? The one on the subway, right? That one? Yeah,
yes, exactly, yes.
Turnstile jumping. Right. Okay.
Okay, Sean Bagshaw and Erin Babnik, thank you so much for joining us today. It was terrific talking with you folks. And stay tuned, because now we are going to announce a couple of winners. Okay, we've been teasing y'all for weeks now about a couple of Canon cameras and lenses we're going to be giving away, and the moment of truth is now at hand. Before we don our party hats and drop balloons from the rafters, we just want to say that this sweepstakes has been a huge success in terms of connecting with you, our listeners. The comments we've received were just incredible, and they've helped us learn a lot about our show from a perspective other than our very own. Now, the moment you've all been waiting for, okay? We got 2 prizes. Our second prize, which is a Canon EOS 80D with a 50mm f1.8 Canon EF STM lens. Is your name Hillary Dunning? Is your Facebook handle facebook.com/hillary.olsavsky? If that's the case, you are the proud owner of a brand new Canon EOS 80D with a 50mm 1.8 lens. Congratulations. Grand prize. Here we go. Do you live in Austin, Texas? Is your name Timothy Couch? Do you have a Twitter handle at HAMZOMZ? If that's the case, you are the proud owner of a brand new Canon EOS 5D Mark IV with a 50mm f1.8 Canon EF STM lens. Congrats to you too. We're going to be reaching out to both of our winners and hopefully have them on the show next week to find out what they plan on shooting with their new cameras. We truly want to give a big thank you to all of our new and not so new subscribers. No, you didn't win a camera, at least not this time around, but you're now a subscriber to the best photography podcast on the planet. We want to give a special shout out to Canon USA for making this sweepstakes possible. Check them out on Twitter at Canon USA Imaging. And lastly, a really big shout out to the B&H social media and web content teams. They are an awesome bunch. And as always, on behalf of Jason, John, and myself, thank you so much for tuning in.